Sound of eerie wind and a slow rhythmic heartbeat begins. Hello and welcome. Tonight we delve into the shadows, where the unbelievable festers, where the mundane twists into the terrifying. The stories you're about to hear are whispered accounts, experiences etched into the memories of those who endured them. These are moments that remind us the greatest horrors are not on a screen or in a book, but waiting just outside our door, or perhaps already inside. Prepare yourselves, for these stories are designed to linger, to crawl under your skin and stay there long after the screen goes dark. So, turn down the lights if you dare and listen closely. Let's begin. This first story comes from Sarah, who lived on an idyllic, quiet suburban street. She tells me this happened on a Tuesday night, much like any other. A light rain had begun to fall, the gentle patter against her window pane usually a soothing sound that lulled her to sleep. But on this particular night, sleep was elusive. She'd been restless, tossing and turning for what felt like hours. Finally, she'd given up, deciding to get a glass of water. As she padded softly down the dim hallway, the only light came from the faint glow of a street lamp filtering through the living room window. Her house was old, and with age came a symphony of creaks and groans, sounds she was usually accustomed to, but tonight they seemed amplified. It was as she reached the end of the hallway, just before the kitchen, that she glanced at the digital clock on her microwave. The glowing red numerals stared back at her, 3:17 a.m. An odd sense of unease washed over her. It was then, in the oppressive silence of the early morning, broken only by the rain, that she heard it. A soft, almost hesitant knock at her front door. Her heart began to pound in her chest. Who would be knocking at her door at this ungodly hour? She crept towards the front door, her bare feet cold against the wooden floor. The door had a small, frosted glass panel, offering little visibility, but enough to discern shapes. As she peered through it, she could make out a dark silhouette, tall and broad, standing motionless on her porch. The rain outside seemed to intensify, blurring the figure even more. A cold dread snaked its way up her spine. She didn't recognize the shape, and every instinct screamed at her not to open the door. She backed away slowly, her mind racing. Then her phone, which she'd left on the small table by the door, buzzed. The screen lit up, displaying a text message from an unknown number. Her blood ran cold as she read the words, "I know you're awake." The knocking came again, a little louder this time, more insistent. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers trembling too much to dial 911 immediately. The silhouette on the frosted glass shifted, and she could have sworn she saw the faint outline of a face pressing closer. She finally managed to dial, her voice a shaky whisper as she explained the situation to the dispatcher. The knocking stopped abruptly. Then she heard a new sound, a soft, metallic scraping at the door lock. Panic seized her. She was alone, and help was still minutes away. Our next story comes from Mark, who inherited an old, ornate, antique mirror from a distant relative he barely knew. He said the mirror was beautiful, with intricate carvings along its dark wooden frame. But there was always something unsettling about it. He decided to hang it in his upstairs bathroom, a room that even before the mirror's arrival had a tendency for the lights to flicker at odd times. Mark first noticed something was truly wrong a few weeks after the mirror was installed. He'd be shaving or brushing his teeth, and out of the corner of his eye, he'd catch his reflection moving just a fraction of a second out of sync with his own actions. He'd stop, stare directly into the mirror, and his reflection would be perfectly normal, mimicking him flawlessly. He tried to dismiss it as tiredness, or perhaps a trick of the flickering bathroom light. But the occurrences became more frequent, more pronounced. Sometimes his reflection would seem to linger a moment too long after he'd turned away. or its expression would be subtly different. One evening, as he was washing his face, he glanced up. The bathroom light chose that exact moment to flicker violently, plunging the room into near darkness for a split second. When the light returned, steady for once, he saw it. His reflection was still there, but standing just behind it, almost superimposed, was another figure. It was tall and gaunt, with a pale, featureless face except for its mouth, which appeared to be crudely stitched shut with thick, dark thread. Mark recoiled in horror, stumbling back against the bathroom door. He blinked, thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him, but the ghostly, stitched-mouth figure remained in the mirror, its head tilted slightly as if observing him with unseen eyes. The figure in the mirror slowly raised a hand, not his reflection's hand, but its own pale skeletal hand. The mirror's surface seemed to ripple like water, and the ghostly hand began to push through. Mark watched, frozen in terror, as pale fingers tipped with yellowed nails emerged from the reflective plane, reaching into the real space of his bathroom. He finally broke free from his paralysis, a strangled scream tearing from his throat. He lunged for the bathroom door, yanking it open and scrambling out into the hallway, not daring to look back. He slammed the door shut, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He never replaced the mirror. Chapter 3. Under the House. Chloe began to suspect something was wrong in her small rental house after a series of unsettling events. Objects weren't where she left them, and she felt watched even when alone. She lived alone, and the house had always felt safe until then. The feeling gnawed at her peace of mind. She decided to investigate the crawl space under her house. It was dark, damp, and unwelcoming, accessible only through a small hatch. Armed with a flashlight, she descended into the darkness. The air was stale and cold, carrying the scent of earth and something vaguely human. Her flashlight landed on a makeshift bed of old blankets and cardboard boxes. Her blood ran cold. She saw discarded food wrappers, empty water bottles and a cheap burner phone. Someone had been living under her house, right beneath her feet. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. Her initial shock quickly turned to a sickening dread. This wasn't just a squatter, it felt far more personal, more sinister. She noticed a small wire running from the bedding to the floorboards of her bedroom. Her flashlight revealed a tiny hole drilled through the wood, positioned to view under her bed. The horror intensified as she continued her search. She found more wires, more tiny holes. One was angled towards her closet, another towards the main living area. This person had been systematically spying on her, observing her most private moments. The feeling of being watched was no longer a paranoid fancy. It was a horrifying reality. She felt violated, exposed, a cold sweat breaking out on her skin. Suddenly, the burner phone on the dirt floor next to the makeshift bed buzzed, its screen lighting up the grimy space. Chloe froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. The sound was deafening in the silence of the crawl space. She couldn't resist the morbid urge to see what it said. With shaking fingers, she picked it up. Room for rent. This unsettling account was pieced together from a series of corrupted video files recovered from a security camera system. The camera was set up by a man named David, who had recently purchased a dilapidated apartment building with the intention of renovating it. One particular unit on the third floor had a history. Previous tenants never stayed long, complaining of strange noises and an oppressive atmosphere. David, a skeptic, decided to set up a camera in the unit's main hallway before starting renovations, just to see if he could capture anything unusual. The hallway was long and narrow, with peeling wallpaper and a single bare bulb overhead that flickered intermittently, casting unreliable dancing shadows. The camera was motion activated, set to record any activity. For the first few nights it captured nothing but dust motes dancing in the dim light and the occasional scurry of a rodent. David was beginning to think the stories were just local superstition, amplified by the building's run-down appearance. Then, on the fourth night, the camera recorded something. The footage begins normally enough. The timestamp shows 1:08 a.m. The hallway is empty, silent save for the persistent low hum of old electricity. Then, around the 1:10 a.m. mark, the footage begins to glitch. The image distorts, lines of static cutting across the screen, the audio filled with a crackling, popping sound. This continues for nearly 2 minutes, an anomaly David initially attributed to a fault in the camera or a power surge. When the image finally stabilizes at 1:12 a.m., something is different. The door at the far end of the hallway, which David was certain he had locked and double-checked, is now slightly ajar. It opens slowly, creaking ominously, not as if pushed by a draft, but as if pulled by an unseen hand. The static effect on the video, though lessened, still flickers around the edges of the frame, and a low, distorted whispering can be heard on the audio track, almost too faint to decipher. Then a figure emerges from the doorway. It's tall and unnaturally thin, its limbs elongated and moving with a jerky, disjointed gait. Its skin appears pale, almost translucent in the camera's night vision. Its face is obscured by shadow and the poor quality of the glitched footage. Chapter 5. The Basement Light. Our final story tonight comes from Alex, who experienced something terrifying in the basement of his childhood home. The basement was unfinished, concrete walls, low ceiling, and a single bare light bulb casting deep shadows. It was a place he generally avoided. One stormy evening his parents asked him to fetch a box of old photo albums. Though he tried to act brave, the thought of descending those creaky stairs filled him with dread. The rain lashed against the windows, amplifying the basement's creepiness. As he reached the bottom, he pulled the string for the light. The bulb flickered to life, causing shadows to dance. He quickly located the box, eager to get back upstairs. The air was cold and damp, carrying a faintly metallic smell. He felt a sudden drop in temperature and the distinct feeling he was no longer alone. He froze, listening intently. He heard the rhythmic dripping of water and a soft, wet, dragging sound. He peered into the shadowy corners, his heart pounding. The swinging light bulb cast erratic patterns. He told himself it was just his imagination, but the feeling of being watched intensified. He took a hesitant step towards the stairs, clutching the box tightly. That's when he saw them. From the darkest corner, a pair of eyes glowed faintly. They were small, red, and intensely bright, like hot coals. And with that, we draw to a close on tonight's journey into the unsettling. The stories you've heard are a stark reminder that the fabric of our reality can sometimes tear, revealing glimpses of things we'd rather not acknowledge. Thanks for listening to The Listener's Void. The darkness holds countless stories, and the ones we've shared tonight are just a few. If these stories have resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more content like this. And if you have a scary story of your own, please don't hesitate to comment below or email it in. Until then, stay safe and try to get some sleep.